from the shelter-in-place studio of Leslie Jackson. Welcome to this special video episode of The Leslie Show, in which I talk with singer-songwriter and good friend Ira Marlowe from his studio just a mile or so away. All right, awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining us on our premiere episode. How about the sort of elevator Ira Marlowe introduction?
Uh,
How do you do it?
my little bio says I write 4-minute movies. Just very sort of visual musical stories. You know, I mean, I do other things too, but that's kind of one of my main and favorite things.
I like the simplicity of that and the utter complexity of that at the same time. There's a lot to a little movie.
Well, some people have said, you know, you should put your songs in movies. And I've tried doing that, and the feedback I get is they say, no, you should make a movie about this song.
Nice,
You know,
beautiful.
but the songs in movies tend to be sort of, they need to sit in the background and support the scene and not really call attention to themselves.
Right.
Or be as specific as mine tend to be.
You write blockbusters? Do you write art films?
I write art films and try to write blockbusters.
Great. One of the things that I really love about your songwriting in particular is the poignance without being cloying or overly sentimental. You manage to sneak in some cleverness that makes the heart respond. And I wonder where that comes from for you, that you recognize and pull that out. Why would someone have a one-eyed horse?
To make him look all the more pathetic. So, I mean, a lot of it is about vulnerability, you know, and about just, I mean, that song is about blue sky dreams. It's about, as bad as it gets, this, you know, very human tendency to still see a way out, you know, and still think that something good is going to happen. And sometimes it does. And obviously, you know, there's that old line, I don't know, you know, that, you know, positive thinking doesn't always work, but negative thinking does always work for the most part, you know? So, you know, so it pays to, but yeah, you know, and the other song, The Blind Companion, yeah, it's a blind guy who's, the companion's his dog, yeah. So
Yeah,
his dog can actually see. But
Blind D'Artagnan.
right, very good.
I did my homework. I should mention that I have gotten to, and will hopefully continue to back up Ira on percussion and harmonies for some shows of
Ably.
yours. So, well,
Great
thank you
job.
very much. But it does, for a musician, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. When you've learned some music, it doesn't go away. It's yours. So you better
Good.
like it. Yeah. So that's my advice to you, sidemen. Work with people whose music you like. It will stay with you. So I've been really lucky to work with you. Where are you from? What made you who
I'm
you
from
are?
all over, which is part of what made me. I literally lived in like 6 or 7 different cities before I was 10. My parents were roving anthropologists. And so, yeah, it wasn't until I moved to Philadelphia when I was 10 and lived there for 6 long years. And, you know, that was the first time I'd ever really had one stop in a place. And then moved to Richmond, Virginia, where I lived in my teens on and off for about 10 years, and teens and 20s. And then came out here, and I've been here for 30 years, you know, so this is by far the longest I've ever been anywhere.
And were your parents physical or cultural anthropologists? Do
They
they
were
still
both.
make that distinction? They were
My
both,
mother was
as in one of
physical,
each?
is one of each. My dad was cultural. That's why they didn't get along.
They talked to you clearly. You talk like someone whose parents talked to them, which is so great.
The funny thing is, they, bless their hearts, they're both gone. They were not the most attentive parents, but one thing they did, for better and worse, partly because they weren't very attentive parents, is they just always talked to us like we were adults.
Mhm.
They really never made that distinction. And the good thing about it is, by the time I was like 10 years old, I seemed really smart because I knew all these big words and blah, 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 because I'd been treated like an adult the whole time,
Yeah,
you know, and
there's something to it.
I milked that.
It did set you up for the art of songwriting, which is so much, perhaps some large percentage of word play, or
Absolutely. You know,
Mhm.
there's some people who do this who claim they're not very verbal, you know. it's a funny thing, I teach songwriting, and I'm always telling my students that there really is. It's almost like you have co-writers. You have your left and right brain, if you want to put it really simply, and the right brain stuff, I think, is the intuitive stuff that you spit out. And I think most songwriters of any merit will secretly tell you, to some degree, they have no idea how they do what they do. It just kind of falls out. But then you use your left brain and you work on it and you fine tune stuff. So yes, all that verbal skill is really useful, especially in the editing process. But first
Mm.
drafts, very often it just, you don't know where the hell it came from. You go, thank you.
Gift.
Gift, I guess. Blessing. I feel humbled on a good day.
When you say that, what song comes to mind? What example comes to mind,
Well, it's in
Mark?
this song I just wrote, and these really talented people have this writing group where they get together once a month and they play new songs and give each other feedback. And I didn't have anything new, so I went through some lyrics, and I have like ridiculous amounts of notebooks I can never keep track of, and just sort of randomly came to this verse, and it said, "I used to be a cowboy. I'm not quite a cowboy. I live, blah blah blah." I was like, "That's kind of cool," And I sat down with my guitar, and I tried, and I encourage my students as I tried a bunch of different melodic ideas and a bunch of different rhythms, and finally I hit something that seemed kind of real, and I sang the one verse I had, and then I just went into this chorus without, I just started singing, without really thinking about it. And what's funny, and I liked it, and I didn't get all the way through it, but I got it and said, "This is kind of cool." And I came back the next day or later that afternoon to work on it, completely forgotten it. It's like, fuck. I remembered, I wrote down the words, but I'd completely forgotten the tune and the rhythms and everything. And I was like, God, I'm so stupid. I'm too old. I can't remember anymore. I should know it, And then the next day I played the song, came right back.
The same one.
The same one.
Probably the same one, but maybe not because
no,
you had forgotten.
It definitely was the same one. I just knew. And the problem was I just had the rhythm off. I was trying to do it too fast. And it's once I sort of slowed it down and realized this is how it sits in the music, it all just popped back into my head. And then I wrote the other verse and the rest of it, and I did it really fast. I think, I did the whole thing, started one day and finished it the next, and played it for the song class.
And that's not unusual. That's the course of a song. That can happen.
It's not unusual. It really varies with me, and it varies from writer to writer. There's that old story where, Leonard Cohen asked Bob Dylan backstage how long he took to write a song, and he said 5 minutes or 10 minutes. And then Leonard Cohen responded about his song 10 years, and there's no question. I will often finish a song quickly and think it's done, and then be picking at it and refining it and finding a better chord here, a better word there.
Sure.
And sometimes I'll even have one thing I find again and again, I don't know about other songwriters, but I have this very sort of childish ADD urge for it to be done. And because, yes, I've got a new song, So I tell myself it's done, and then as soon as I play it for someone, I find myself getting really self-conscious in the parts I know aren't really that great, and that always kicks my ass into just reworking it, and it's not that clear to me until I play it for someone else,
Great, like you've had a witness.
Exactly. So.
Would you mind playing a little bit of that, or?
No. How much do you want to hear?
How about a verse and chorus?
Sounds good. You sound like an A&R person.
And if you can't stop, please don't.
Yeah. I may stop when I forget. It's brand new. When I used to be a cowboy, well, not quite a cowboy, I lived in Kansas City back in 1892. And I wore me a 6-gun, but I never got to use it except for shooting down bottles back at Macy's Saloon. And I can't wait for the rodeo to call, for the rodeo to call my name. One sweet ride and the skies are gonna clear, and it's never gonna be the same. Oh, sunshine, you've been on my mind. Once I had a partner, this old Palomino, blind in one eye, but ever so true. And the day that she left me, I just stood out on the corner, saying sweet nothings with nothing to do. And I can't wait for the rodeo to call, for the rodeo to call my name. And I can't wait for the sky to finally clear, and it's never gonna be the same. Oh, sunshine, you've been on my mind, wondering what you'll see. Come that day, you smile my way, hiding home in my rodeo, in my rodeo. Now there's more.
So, when you were coming up and getting into music, were you a rocker? Were you a cover band guy? Were you a coffee house
I went
guy?
through
You know what I mean?
every one of
Did
those.
you do competitions or were you a theater guy?
I should have been a theater guy. That's one of, if I have a regret in my life, it's that I didn't sort of move into that stream, because I feel like I'm more qualified for that because I write so many different kinds of songs,
Hmm.
you know. But I started off as a folky guy. I wanted to play guitar so I could learn American Pie, and basically for the first year or so, it was Don McLean and Simon and Garfunkel and Cat Stevens and James Taylor and Carole King. Um, and then I went to high school and met some rocker dudes,
Mhm.
and I put that all aside, and it was nothing but Bowie, basically, and Zeppelin and Hendrix, but it was the Bowie that I really loved because it's so narrative. The stuff at that time, especially, was really, really
Yeah,
just
so.
really fabulous worlds he was creating.
Mhm.
And and then I got totally into Queen and the Who, and a lot of much more rock and roll stuff.
How do you think what you did set you up for what you're doing now? And what you're doing now, um, tell our listeners who don't know your work and
I'm
know the
doing a bunch
Monkey
of stuff.
House,
I run a place called the Monkey House in Berkeley, which is currently shut down. In fact,
but that you have an analog thing of it to hold up is so charming.
that's the level of desperation over here.
Please, it
Please.
says for those of you who have regular vision, it says please support the Monkey House. So what? Yeah, how does this work for you? Does someone come in and descend upon you with government funds and stimulus things? What does it look like
Start staying open.
for the club owner? Yeah, to
Yeah, who's going to be shut and making no money for many months, it
stay
looks like.
fed and insured during this
Yeah,
time. Yep.
well, we have, I did apply for one of those SBA grants. I have no idea
What does SBA stand for?
a Small Business Administration,
Mm-hmm.
So I basically just input all the information. And we have a Patreon page, which is, and the idea was, I'll show you my little link. Where is it? Here it is. Please support the Monkey House, please. I know everybody's struggling, so the idea was to make it kind of painless. You can still help keep us open. And thank you so much to people who've already done it. And some people have been donated far more than that, and it's incredibly sweet.
Yeah, thank you, folks. I mean, it's in our best interests to keep the Monkey House alive because it's where a bunch of us have met each other. A bunch of musicians meet there, and I've gotten into 4 or 5 other bands just by going to shows at your place. People are really drinking from a fountain of culture and music in what
Oh,
is otherwise a wasteland if it doesn't come back after
thank you.
we go back outside. So what else are you doing? Have you done one of these Facebook live shows where you put the hat out, and how has that worked, or have you done any?
I have not done that yet. I'm
Mhm.
doing one tomorrow at 4:15. It's a thing called shelter in place music, I think is what they call it.
Tomorrow is Friday the
Friday at 4:15. Friday the
uh-huh.
11th.
The 11th of April, folks,
Yeah, so I'll be on for, I think I'm doing like
for
5
those who
songs.
know what day it is.
It's really hard to keep track these
Mm,
days.
mhm, mm.
Um, but yeah, so I'm doing that for 5 songs.
You teach songwriting.
I do.
Now, do you teach songwriting because you can and you need the money from it, or do you love teaching? Like, so there's those two types of people, those that can and those
Right.
that.
I do love it. I love it more and more the more I do it, and partly is I'm getting better at it. The more I do it, the more I think everybody feels like a fraud at some point in what they're doing, and I've sort of passed the point where I feel like a fraud. Um, and it's really gratifying. It's just, people like it. I do see them improve. My joke for a long time, but it's still kind of true, is the more talented the person is, the less they're willing to listen to anything I say. You know, I, I shouldn't, I don't know. It's not, I encourage students to basically develop the ability to listen to their own instincts, and just hear the stuff in their head and follow that and have their own sort of compass. And what's interesting is as students develop, by the end of the class, they're not listening to me anymore. I'm like, yeah, you go,
Great. Because what I'm beginning to gather from the songwriting process, similar to several other creative processes, is the object of the game is to get out of the way and allow the creative spark to come into you and then burn and facilitate it. But
yeah, I mean, one of the adages I always say in the first class is, write drunk, edit sober. And I tell people, don't necessarily take that literally,
Mhm.
but it basically means to free yourself, and just splatter a
Mm,
bunch of stuff on the page.
right.
And
I've heard about your songwriting pattern or your habit, and it involves quite a large kind of sketch size notebook. Is this
it
secret
often
true
does. It
that
often
you
does.
just get like not an 8 by 10 but a huge chunk of real estate and you get your lyrics out on that? Describe that a little bit.
I like that for that reason, because there is a lot of real estate, because it gives me space to fart around and not feel like, A, you don't want to feel like it's precious or that important. And B, it gives me space to like make a little arrow with a little note. This might suck. A lot of times I'll have a column on one side. Once you have a line, I'll write down a bunch of lists of potential rhymes. I'll write down a list of potential images I want to use. And it just gives me lots of space to work with without, having to turn a page and look for where something is. And I look really arty as I walk into a cafe.
Here comes an artist. Oh shoot, he's just a songwriter.
No, I should wear a beret, but I just can't bring that.
So let's hear an example of, say, a song that may have been tedious, overworked, but ended up you're really happy with it. You got one of those in there?
Well, I mean, I'll play a little bit. This is not a good acoustic guitar song. It's more of a band song. But this is kind of my theme song, because I still want to win. This is my theme song. Hung in the dungeon upside down. Each day Mr. Bumble comes around talking smack in Funky Town. I just want to win in the end. Bang the bell that keeps the score. Each time that I hit the floor, I don't mind the cheap decor. I just want to win in the end. Jagged edge, rocky ledge, buzzsaw spinning and the villain grinning. Right now I don't care who's winning. I just want to win in the end. Gonna feel so right. Gonna be so ready. I just hold on tight. I just hold steady. Etc. And like I said, so I don't know, it was overworked in the sense that I tried a bunch of different words and wrote a bunch of different things, and then just made some tough choices.
You've got songs in your repertoire that I think you've been performing for years and years. What must
Mm-hmm.
that be like? Do they remind you of where you were at when you first wrote them, when you performed them, or do they keep renewing for you?
That's a really good question, and I think it sort of varies from song to song. What I've always felt is that if there's an audience that's appreciating it, I get that energy from them, and I really like doing it. And it's really easy to feel what I felt when I wrote it and buy into that. I mean, I'm almost embarrassed, at what a sort of thin emotional skin I have. And I can sometimes come close to tears on stage singing a song, just because I meant it and I feel it. And sometimes it's the process of revealing it and in a way confessing it in front of people that's really powerful. It's much more, which is why I kind of have a hard time in the studio capturing what I do a lot of the time, because I feel like I do need that audience to get that sort of realness and honesty. And I think it's easy in the studio to get kind of clever and contrived and, you know,
Mhm.
how do I look? How do I look? How do I sound? And you lose the real.
Does it start to feel like something you're doing on behalf of other people, like not like well, somewhat like a martyr, like I have to be the emotional barometer for the rest of you and allow you to kind of feel the poignancy and the heartbreak and the tears?
I, I've been
That's a funny way to put
aspiring.
it,
I've
but
been aspiring for years to be that guy.
okay. Yeah, so the Monkey House, ladies and gentlemen, what's the address, Ira?
1638 University Avenue,
Between California and Delaware?
California and Jefferson.
California and Jefferson.
The great
And
landmark everybody knows is the Out of the Closet thrift store. It's in that.
there we go.
It's right
In
across
that
from the
plaza.
Super 8 Motel, in case you can't make it home.
And how do people sort of stay abreast of the shows that are happening there? And then how do people go? Because it's not like you buy a ticket through brown paper tickets or something.
No, usually tickets are just sold at the door, and it's just themonkeyhouse.org. On our website, because I live here, it's a private residence, so we don't publish the address until you make a reservation.
It's a fun audience. It's a smart audience. Sometimes everybody knows who is playing. Sometimes nobody does. Sometimes it's a brand new touring band. It's a great way to check out some people that are coming in from Madison, Wisconsin that you wouldn't have otherwise gone to see. And then afterwards, you get to make friends with them. It's
Right.
very intimate and highly recommended when we get to go play outside again.
Exactly.
Go play outside at the Monkey House.
Yeah, and we also have not just music, but comedy and small theater and storytelling and pretty much whatever. I love booking sort of diverse,
Get a
weird.
little improv has happened there.
Monthly
Great storytelling.
Stone Creek Improv.
Great. All right, Ira, you've been Ira, and tomorrow you're going to
I
be
cannot help
live,
myself.
Facebook Live.
Yeah,
Great.
live on Shelter in Place
Okay. Be
music
sure to tune
on,
in.
on Facebook and 415.
Great.
You
Thanks for
can
joining us. Let's try the
surrender.
high five. Try the high five. Ready? All right.
Oh, okay. Well done.
That was fun.
It was fun.
Big old witch with the dirty old hands.
Can you say cock in Vanity Fair?
Oh, sure.
Oh, really?
Stir it up, stir it up, stir it up best you can. That old lady make a meal of my plans. But the silver moon in the midnight sky, older than forever, but it still can fly. I can see by that silver light, and I might make it home tonight.
You're listening to The Leslie Show.